Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing how to switch from middle to senior in data science. I guess that's a very vital question because there are a lot of junior people in data science, and it's pretty straightforward path how to switch from junior to middle. You just need to get a little bit more experience. But switching from middle to senior, it's a challenging one. Nobody really knows what to do about it. So today we will be talking with Alexey Grigoriev about that as a part of DataFest 2020 career track. My name is Pavel Pleskov, and I'm a machine learning engineer at Praxis. Praxis is a San Francisco-based startup. So I have a title of machine learning not to get in trouble with all these junior, middle, senior data scientist positions, because it's much easier to call yourself a machine learning engineer. But we'll discuss it later. So our main speaker today is Alexey Grigoriev. Alexey, please introduce yourself.
My name is Alexey Grigoriev. I've been in tech for more than 10 years. Now I work as a lead data scientist at OLX Group. As a lead, I work with many people across the company internally, and I help them grow. Outside of OLX, I also frequently talk with others. And we often have career-related discussions, and then I give suggestions and recommendations. In this talk, I'll share my experience and suggest a few ways to advance your career.
All right, thank you, Alexey. So let's dive straight into it. So let's start with a general question about what stages of career growth are there in tech industry?
So at every company, it's a bit different, but there is a general career framework that is more or less consistent across companies. So of course, there are initial steps like junior specialist, middle level specialist, and senior. I think that exists in pretty much every company. And then at some point after senior, it branches into two paths. One path is expert track, when you continue growing as an individual contributor. So after senior, you have staff specialist, principal, and chief. And then there is also a managerial track where you can become a manager and then a head of something and then a director. So for juniors, usually they work on well-defined tasks, something that is clear, they can just do it. So the main responsibility is learning new things, and often they do things under guidance and supervision. Middle level specialists, they are more independent. They can work on bigger tasks without supervision. And then there is a senior level. They are independent. They mentor less senior people. They drive projects. They take ownership, and they are not afraid of making decisions. So they often engage with stakeholders. They clarify requirements and communicate with pretty much everyone. And then it diverges. It goes into two branches, and lead is something like senior, but less hands-on and more communication. They're doing it across multiple teams. Then principal is quite similar to lead, but they are often doing it across departments, not just teams. And then for managerial track, it's quite simple. So manager is somebody who manages a team, then head of somebody who manages managers, and then director is a very high level role.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I think that's a very nice and clear structure. Okay, let's talk about data sciences, how they're different from the chart you just showed us.
Yeah, so that chart was more general, so it applies to every type of role in technology. So it can be engineers, analysts, designers, and also data scientists. For more data scientists, of course, you have junior data science, middle data science, senior data science. So it is specific about data science. And when it comes to junior professional, so it's somebody who knows machine learning, knows Python, knows SQL, and then they can use these skills to create a model, to get some data set and create a model in Jupyter Notebook. Then for middle level specialists, for middle data scientists, they are typically better engineers. So they can do coding at junior or middle level software engineer. So they can follow best engineering practices, they understand the importance of tests, they take active part in the process. And then when it comes to the senior data scientists, they are more end-to-end. They're pretty good engineers. They can do things from data pre-processing, data preparation, to model training and actually model serving. So of course, when it comes to engineering skills, they're better engineers than middle. So they are on the middle level of software engineers. And on top of that, they're actively engaged with stakeholders. They work on clarifying how a business problem can be solved with machine learning. So this is how it happens in data science.
Yeah. So moving next, what about my favorite machine learning engineers? So how are they different from data scientists? And what about their career ladder?
Yeah, so again, it all depends extremely on the organization. So every organization defines machine learning engineers and data scientists differently. In some cases, data scientists are more like data analysts, and what I described previously about data scientists, this is what they call machine learning engineers. But I see at OLX and in many other companies across Europe that ML engineers, they are actually engineers, and there is a clear distinction between data scientists and engineers. By being engineers, what I mean, they are more focused on production than data scientists, and data scientists are more focused on business and other things. So for a machine learning engineer, they have deep technical expertise. For example, it's reasonable to expect from a senior machine learning engineer skills of a senior software engineer. So somebody who works as a usual software engineer, not necessarily in machine learning, should have the same engineering skills as a senior machine learning engineer. While for data scientists, maybe we don't always expect such proficiency in engineering topics, and they are more like on middle or higher level of software engineering. For a machine learning engineer, they often focus on technical topics, as I said, so they can have some great technical expertise in some topics, like they maybe know Python internals very well, or they know some tools very well, like maybe they know everything in Kubernetes, and if something happens, they really can deep dive and solve any problems. And of course, like for senior roles, so maybe the lines are often blurred, especially when we talk senior and levels above. And both machine learning engineers and data scientists can do pretty similar things. So there is no clear distinction sometimes, but again, since machine learning engineer is an engineer, then the focus is more on technical expertise.
So what do seniors do exactly? How is it different from middle data scientists?
Seniors, they are more like technical leaders on a project. So they lead one or multiple projects within a team, and they are not afraid of making any decisions. So they can take both technical and non-technical decisions. What they do is they can turn abstract tasks that somebody just says, hey, I have this problem. They work through these requirements and turn them into concrete tasks, something that they can just give to juniors and they can pick it up and implement it. They communicate a lot with business people. They should have good understanding of the business domain. And this is especially true for data scientists, but also true for machine learning engineers. And when it comes to data scientists, they are good developers. They can do things end to end, from data collection to modeling and then model serving. And of course, for machine learning engineers, it's even deeper. When then one of the other things they do is mentoring others. They are sharing knowledge. They are mentoring interns, juniors, often formally and informally. Formally, there is in some companies there is a formal process. Like, hey, like let's agree on some goal, and then we meet every week to discuss progress and things like this. But then also it can be informally, like just being there to answer questions. And it can take many forms, like pair programming, just showing what's the best way of doing some things, sharing articles, books, and things like this. But the main idea here is sharing knowledge, helping other people grow, usually technically, but sometimes also non-technically.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibilities for senior people, but that's why they're called seniors, right? So, I guess this is the main question of our talk today. How do middle-level professionals become seniors?
In my opinion, there are two factors that you need to think about to become a senior. The first is ownership, and second is communication. And you need to work on these two to actually become a senior. So ownership is like when you are taking responsibility of one part of a project and you are not afraid of making any decisions there. And you can say, okay, we're not doing this, or yes, we are doing this thing, or you can say how we're doing things. And communication is when you have new requirements coming, then you work a lot with the stakeholder to clarify these requirements and take these ambiguous requirements and turn them into something concrete, something that you can implement. And usually, like when somebody asks me, hey, how do I become a senior? What I answer is to become a senior officially, you need to become a senior unofficially. And usually it means you act as a senior and then you'll eventually be recognized as a senior and get promoted. Now, one tip for that is try to look around and check your colleagues. Try to see if there is somebody senior who you think are really good, and try to watch them. See how they work, see what they do, how they handle different situations, how they behave in meetings, and just try to reproduce it, try to behave in a similar way. And this way you'll try to mimic people who are already senior, and then you become more senior yourself. But also for this discussion, it's quite an interesting topic, and I reached out to many people I know, and I asked them, hey, how did you become a senior? What did you do to actually do this? I asked this question in ODS, I asked this on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I talked to people who I know personally. And I asked them, how did you get promoted? And one of the topics that was coming up in pretty much every conversation was ownership. For example, I took a complete ownership of the ML pipeline. I made it simpler and showed others how to use it. Or I took end-to-end ownership from communication and data collection to deploying and testing models. Or, for example, my team lead was taking a parental leave, so I replaced him while he was away. So ownership in this context means just take a piece of a project and make decisions there. Make it simpler, document it, talk to others, and basically own a piece of project. Then other topic that was coming up pretty much in every second discussion was communication. So it was things like warning the team about potential blockers, actively voicing concerns, working on the right thing and communicating it well. In addition to ownership, when you own a piece of a project, just try to take all the communication related to this project. Try to talk to stakeholders. Try to get all the requirements from them and turn them into something manageable. And then another topic that was coming up pretty often was teaching. So teaching is also a way of communication, but with more focus on sharing knowledge. I heard things like I showed others how to use this ML pipeline efficiently, or I did presentations in our paper reading clubs. What is also important when you take ownership in a piece of project, like in a part of project or in a big project, you take active part in the process. So you participate in preparing roadmaps, You identify problems there, come up with plans to solve it. And one of the quotes I heard from people was, identified a problem, came up with a plan to solve it, found support, and executed the plan. Last but not least is visibility. So it's not enough just to do all these things and be silent about this. You need to tell others about this. So you need to talk about your successes, about the successes of your team, and show it in all hands or share it with other teams. And also represent the company in external conferences. So you did a cool project, just submit a proposal on a conference and talk about this. And maybe you noticed that it wasn't really about technical skills. It was more about like soft skills. So it wasn't about a particular technology, but rather about the way you work. And one of my friends said that his technical skills are still on the same level as previously when he was middle. So it's mostly, for him, it was mostly about soft skills like communication, persuasion, and in general, being more open-minded. And one tip from me personally is try to look at what other people don't want to do and try to do that. Usually, if nobody wants to do it and you do it, then everybody is happy. So you get visibility, you get ownership, you basically get all these things. So for example, for data science, one problem often is deploying models and dealing with all the infrastructure stuff. And many data scientists don't want to deal with this. They rather wait for a DevOps engineer to come and help deal with these problems. What you can do to stand out is just learn how to use tools, infrastructure tools yourself, things like Kubernetes, and do it yourself. This way you will become more independent. You will not need to wait till DevOps comes and helps you. I also saw that people are not really into talking with stakeholders, like trying to clarify the requirements. And this is also what you can volunteer to do and take a more active part. And this way, if you do even just these things, it's more likely that you'll become a senior.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was really insightful. Now I finally got why you have chosen this topic, because you did such a great research on it. Like in short, like my main takeaway from it is soft skills are important. I talk about it all the time. As you grow, soft skills become more and more important, and you just can't get away being just nerdy, introverted data scientist. If you want to grow as a data scientist. And the other main idea is ownership, definitely, because everybody wants a reliable person who can get a piece of job and get it done. And I mean, even if you hire some services, you want it from people who work on you. And yeah, definitely stakeholders want it as well. And I think the final insight was fake it till you make it. Look at others, do what they do, and become serious. Yeah, I really liked all the pieces of advice you gave us. So moving next. So this one is a bit funny. So how do you understand that you became a senior? I guess other than getting a title, that you are already getting promoted and getting a title.
Yeah, that's a pretty good sign that you're a senior if you got a title.
Yeah.
But other than that, most people I talked to, they told me they just knew it. So one day they woke up and they just realized, okay, now I'm a senior. And in my opinion, seniority is about not being afraid to make decisions yourself. If you are not afraid and you can take a piece of project and then you can just say, okay, we're doing it this way, then you're a senior. So you can just do it. When you see a problem and you know how to solve it, you take end-to-end responsibility and just solve it. And if you do this, you're ready. And also, if you can argue with more senior colleagues, and not just with emotion, but justify your opinion, support your opinion with data points, with facts or past experience, then being able to argue is also, it also means that you're ready.
Yeah, it seems like if there is a small team and there is only one junior or middle, then he or she automatically becomes senior because he or she will do all the work and take the full ownership and responsibility. But yeah, jokes aside, let's move next. So there are a classical case when people don't want to become managers; they want to stay experts. And it seems like even on lower level, it could be an issue if a person don't want to become a senior. So what advice would you give here?
Yeah. So in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with not wanting this. So as we just discussed, being a senior means a lot of responsibility, a lot of communication work, and it means you have less time on actually working with your hands, just sitting there and coding. And many people would rather focus on solving well-defined tasks. Maybe they are not ambitious, they really enjoy what they are doing, but they are not looking into getting more responsibility. Maybe they'd rather sleep well at night than worry about all these things. And in my opinion, this is perfectly fine. So if you don't want to do this, and just be clear about this, and that's fine. So I personally wouldn't insist on if you don't want to talk to people and work on your communication skills, I wouldn't insist on doing this. Of course, unless it hurts your work as a middle level professional. But if your communication skills are fine for your level and you don't want to improve that, you'd rather focus on technical things, in my personal opinion, it's totally fine. And yeah. So middle level is also a level at some companies called terminal level. So it means you can work as a middle throughout your career without progressing to senior role, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I want to be a devil's advocate here. So this weekend I talked to CEO of Redmond Robot. It's a well-known company in Russia among engineers and designers. And he explicitly said that they don't hire people who don't want to become managers and seniors. And if you cannot take full responsibility in a project, then you probably cannot take full responsibility in your life as well. And that's very concerning. So for those middles, like my advice for all the middles, please take responsibility, please develop your soft skills, and don't be afraid to become seniors. It's not that frightening, trust me. So moving next. So what if a person followed all your advices and still cannot get there, cannot get this lucrative title of a senior data scientist?
So I noticed that there are some behavioral anti-patterns indeed, and one of them is perfectionism. Like when you want to do everything right, and you want to make sure everything is correct and up to the very high engineering standards, for example, and the models are accurate and things like this. And you spend a lot of time on making sure it's perfect even before talking about the project. And I think that's a big anti-pattern. So uh, it's really not a showstopper, but it prevents you from growing. And I saw many people who, because of that, spend a lot of time making a perfect model, and then when this model failed, of course, they wasted a lot of time. Another anti-pattern I noticed is not ready to argue with senior people with facts, but instead, like when they argue, they use emotions and they don't support their opinion with their experience, facts, details, things like this, but rather act on emotions. And it's difficult to make decisions based on emotions. So you'd rather have things like metrics or past experience when it's easier to make decisions. Other thing I noticed is blaming. So like, okay, our project failed because of this team didn't do this, other team didn't do this, and somebody else didn't do this. So blaming others is I think one of these behavioral anti-patterns that doesn't let you grow. And one of other big things is just saying it's not my job. I do not want to do this. So I'm hired as a data scientist. I don't want to deal with infrastructure. I don't want to deal with data cleaning. I don't want to deal with talking to business people. I'm just a data scientist. What do you want from me? So in this case, of course, try to not say that and step out of your responsibilities and actually try to get involved into infrastructure, and that will help you grow, like getting out of your comfort zone and trying things there. Of course, it's often difficult to spot these things in your behavior. So it's nice to have somebody who can help you doing this, like a manager or a colleague who you can just ask, hey, like, what do you think about my behavior? Do you have any feedback for me? And then actually work on this feedback, work on fixing these issues that you identified. And yeah, this way, eventually you'll be able to overcome these issues and grow to a senior role.
Yeah, I would summarize it like don't be a jerk and think about the goal, the business goal, because this is important. Even I catched myself sometimes that I spend too much time on tuning the model, which is totally unnecessary. You just waste a lot of time, and from the business point of view, it's completely useless. So yeah, these were really great advices. So last but not the least, so what if on your way of becoming a senior there is a bureaucracy problem? So you did all right, you followed all the advices, you're not a jerk, you did all well, and but you still not being promoted. What to do?
Yeah, so unfortunately, you're right. In many companies and many organizations, the process is quite bureaucratic, and there are formal requirements like, oh, you need to have exceeds expectation in your two latest performance reviews, or you need to have a significant impact on metrics in the key markets with your models and things like this. And because you didn't do, like maybe you just met expectation in the previous review cycle, we cannot promote you. Of course, this is pretty sad to hear, I assume. I can imagine that like even though you're working hard, just because of this formality, you cannot get the title officially. So probably the best way here is to have a long conversation with your manager and identify, like develop a clear development path to make sure that next time when the next review cycle happens, you can exceed expectations. Like how do you actually set expectations in such a way that you can overcome this bureaucracy and have the title you want. Of course, sometimes it's also political, and promotions are based on who knows who and not merit-based. And that's probably not an ideal place to work. And probably in this case, you can do is look outside of your organization and consider opportunities in other places. So basically change a job. And I know many people who did this. They weren't able to overcome these bureaucratic requirements. They couldn't get a promotion after trying it for multiple, like even years. They eventually changed their job and got the title they wanted, the responsibility they wanted, and now they're happy.
Yeah, to finish on the bright side, I think it could be easier to get a promotion in a smaller company. For example, in a startup, and there is definitely a lot of responsibility to take. Of course, on the dark side, the process is not that structured, but still, there is a good shortcut for becoming a senior. So thank you very much, Alexey. I really enjoyed talking to you. I got a lot of useful insights about how to become a senior. I understood for myself who am I. I would not share it with you. And if you want for all the listeners, if you want to get more research and insights from Alexey, please follow him on LinkedIn and also on Twitter. He has a lot of content and is I hope you already appreciate it. He can dive really deep into the topic and get a proper research. Thank you very much, Alexey.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.